We're here and welcome to That's a Tap CT with DJ. We're here to preview the big pay-per-view UFC 292. How are we feeling?
Feeling good. 290, man. Another pay per view around the corner because, I mean, like I
Mm,
said, we're being spoiled. But before we get into all that, CT, how's life? What's new? What's going on? Have you been following the
good.
combat world?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm looking
Yeah,
forward to breaking this big event down with you.
yeah,
And also, we'll recap a little bit of the heavyweight fight between
yeah,
AJ
yeah,
Joshua finally getting a knockout that he
yeah.
hasn't had in a while.
In a
Um,
while, yeah.
yeah, how are you feeling?
Yeah, man, feeling great. I'm quite pumped and excited. And whenever there's a pay per view, we know there's going to be fights that'll deliver, cards that are going to be stacked, and they keep up the trend. I mean, look, is it as stacked as the July cards? Absolutely not. It's just going to be a tall task to try and match that.
Mm,
But that aside, man, this is still a very strong card. The main event is something that really, really intrigues me. I'm really looking forward to watching it. The core main event, getting to see Weili back. I mean, who doesn't want to see that? And there's some cool fights in there. We get the All American Chris Weidman making his comeback after that freak leg injury. So yeah, look, there's a lot to look forward to in this card, and yeah, man, let's get into it.
yeah. Yeah, it was a sneaky good card, and obviously it had its disruptions, but they've managed to find Ian Garry another fight. Uh,
Yeah,
so look forward to breaking that down. But let's always start from the top. The main
yep,
event. This is two guys that have history. Uh,
yep.
how are you seeing this big main event?
Man, it's a great fight, great main event. It's good to see Aljo getting his dues. Obviously, since he unceremoniously won that fight or the title, I should say, the very first time due to doctor
Mm,
stoppage and all that, followed after the fight. He's since then come back extremely strongly. He's probably one of those fighters who's proven his haters wrong. Time and time again, he stepped in after that. The second time around, people expected him to, lose to Peter Yan uh,
yeah,
convincingly, which wasn't the case. He actually won that fight, and I agree with the judges there. And then he went on to fight TJ Dillashaw. He beat him too. And then he fought another, top tier fighter, former champion in Henry Cejudo, beaten him too. And then now he's looking at, defending it against Sean O'Malley, who's, the upcoming prospect of the challenge, one should say. A Dana White Contender Series find, has been nothing but fireworks every time he fights. Obviously, a very polarizing figure, understands how the showbiz works, the showbiz side of fighting. But we've always seen with the likes of Conor McGregor, Israel Adesanya. Whenever you talk about superstardom, having the it factor is great. Having a good sound understanding of the showbiz and sort of how to get the imagination of the general public is great. But you also need to have the fighting skills to back it up, and that's what sort of helped the fighters that I mentioned. And Sean O'Malley has that. I mean, he's won every single fight he's had. His last fight was a huge step up in competition in Peter Yan. Obviously, a very close fight. I think we probably thought Peter Yan, you know, edged him out. But again, that's the whole thing about close fights, man. Like it can go either way. Close fights means both guys have performed equally well. And then it's just a thin sort of knife edge, you should say. But now they both collide. I think the excitement for the fight was already there, especially from the uh, perspective of can Sean O'Malley, having had this journey to the title shot, can he capture the title? That itself intrigues it. But man, we all got to agree that gimmick at the end of the last fight of Aljo when he beat Henry Cejudo, and then they had the face off inside the cage and all the entertainment that surrounded it. That kind of elevated it even more. One would argue on that particular night, the star of the show was Marab when he stole Sugar Sean's jacket. But
yeah.
nonetheless, man, like it kind of elevated sort of that fight. And we're 5 days out from get witnessing this taking place.
Yeah, 100% echo what you just said, and I think really looking forward to this one. It's a really good main event. Um, Two charismatic guys. They got the lead up, the backstory as well. Um, And yeah, I feel like this is an open matchup in terms
Yeah,
of like, I think either fighter has the chance. You
yeah,
know, obviously, I would favor Aljo
yeah,
coming in, and I do think he's going to win.
yeah,
But you never know. 5 rounds. Sugar Sean has that knockout, flashy
yeah,
style
yeah,
that he's done it in the past. He's ended it quickly. You,
yeah.
you just never know. But yeah,
You never know.
Aljo's
Yeah.
just. I think he's too well rounded in the game for me. But what do you think to that?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I agree with your assessment of the situation, but I'm actually predicting Sean O'Malley to get the job done.
Oh,
It's just big. I just feel like it's one of those fights where it's just unexpected. You know what I mean? I mean, on paper, Aljamain Sterling should
okay.
win this fight. But what I'm thinking of sort of is that Aljamain's already talking about moving up to 145 pounds and sort of being done with his division. Um, and then I think Sean O'Malley's coming in with a mindset of, look, this is his chance to like
Yeah.
realize that dream of being a champion. I think he's Aljamain is an extremely great grappler. One of the best in that division, one of the best in the UFC. But I also think Sean O'Malley's grappling is underrated purely because he doesn't use it as much. We either see him knock out people quite early, or he doesn't need to use them. I mean, we did see. I mean, one could argue that he didn't really show his grappling abilities against the Peter Yan fight, where he got taken down a fair bit. Um, but I do think his grappling is underrated. So I think that'll play a big part, especially knowing the type of opponent that you're going to go against. I think they're going to be drilling that a lot more. I
Okay.
saw some footage. I saw some footage image of Sean O'Malley submitting a world class grappler. So so
Ooh.
it is there, right? Like that skill set is there, and we know the striking department. I would say Sean O'Malley is a superior striker. He's very clean, very accurate. He's one of the best strikers in the UFC. So we've got, to be honest, man, you step back and have a look at this matchup. You're looking at one of the best grapplers in the UFC going up against one of the best strikers in the UFC. So it's a very interesting matchup. So yeah, I'm excited. One thing I'm uh, sort of want to highlight or speak highly about is that the bantamweights are now starting to headline pay-per-views, which is great. Kind of the work that the
Mm.
likes of the previous champions put into place. We've always seen the bantamweight championship always being either a core main, and now we're seeing them high, uh, headlining pay-per-views, and obviously Aljamain's headlined I think a couple of them now. So yeah, man, it's really great to see, and soon the flyweights will be there too. But hey, CT, I've got a question for you. Um,
Yeah.
bantamweight division is one of the stacked divisions in the UFC, right? And you get some of the best talent and skill coming out of that division. If you think of some of the champions in that division, you look at Andy Cejudo, Dominic Cruz, Aljamain Sterling, TJ Dillashaw, Cody Garbrandt. During that time of when he was at his peak performance, he was unstoppable as well. That performance against Dominic Cruz. Now, there's always this conversation. This word gets thrown around a lot, and one of the things is who's the greatest bantamweight of all time, right? So you got if you were to say, or if I were to say, Aljamain Sterling is the greatest bantamweight of all time, would you agree?
Uh, of all time, I think it's really close. I think you could definitely make a big case, a
Yeah,
strong case, that Aljo is.
yeah,
For me, I got a lot of respect for Henry Cejudo
yeah,
as well. Um,
yeah,
Obviously, he defeated him, so yeah,
yeah,
I'll probably give it to Aljo at this
yeah,
point.
man.
What about you?
Yeah, no, I would like to argue the fact that regardless of the outcome of the fight on Sunday, that he's definitely the greatest bantamweight champion of all time. If not,
Mm.
or the greatest bantamweight of all time. If not, at least one of them.
Yeah.
Because I mean, yes, like you look at his title reign, it's not that long.
Mm.
Obviously now this is his fourth title defense, but he's always fought top tier guys. Even before the title fight, he was on a massive win streak, and he was fighting the best of the best. He's got to win over Corey Sandhagen, right? There's his one loss to Morales said he can't obviously get back because he's not no longer in the UFC, but he's got some wins over some top tier guys.
Yeah, yeah,
So it's just as an overall resume. If you look at Aljamain Sterling's resume, it's quite good, and he's been a champion who's been constantly improving. And sometimes you look at where they have to come from. He had to face a lot of adversity, especially at the start of his title run, and he seems like he's overcome that. And there is a lot of respect now being put on his name, which is great to see. Henry Cejudo obviously did a lot as well. I mean, Dominic Cruz probably did a lot more than Henry Cejudo because Henry came in, beat Dominic Cruz, obviously. We also captured that and bantamweight title, and then uh, sort of vacated the title after that. Like he won the title, defended it once, and from a bantamweight point of view, Henry Cejudo was only there for like 2 fights, and then he came back, and obviously
yeah,
Aljamain was able to get a win over him. So yeah, I mean, I feel he is, and I think he's a good fighter, Aljamain Sterling.
yeah. How do you think it's going to end, and how
I mean,
long?
my prediction is Sean O'Malley, right? So it has to be a knockout. I mean, the chances of an O'Malley win, if it goes the
Yeah,
distance, is quite slim. Because Aljo is really good at taking control in the championship rounds and sort of his fight IQ, which is also underrated to be honest. Understanding the requirement of the fight and the direction in which it's going. So I'm still going to say Sean O'Malley for the upset, and then he's going to probably get the knockout, the second round maybe, or a TKO or a knockout. Yeah,
ooh, okay, nice. Yep, that'll add
yeah,
a lot of excitement, and that'll have fans on their feet. That'll be
yeah.
good. If I'm predicting Aljo, I'll probably predict it in maybe I'm going to say either decision,
Yeah,
um, or maybe a submission
a
in the
submission.
fourth.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
Very viable, man. Like, I mean, I'm not predicting this like a with a landslide win for
yeah,
O'Malley. I just believe it's going to be a very close. I mean, it's 50-50. It's very close. On paper, obviously, Aljamain's the the better martial artist, I guess.
yeah,
Especially with that championship experience under his belt. So, but we'll see. Either way, we're going to be treated to a good fight, I believe. So, yeah,
yeah. Let's hope. Yeah, it's a banger. And speaking of bangers, yeah, the co-main.
yeah,
Um, yeah, Zhang Weili versus Amanda
yeah,
Lemos.
yeah.
Um, yeah, it's been a little while since we've seen
Wiley.
Weili in
Yeah,
action.
yeah.
What do you
When
make of
did
this matchup?
it's a good. I mean, it's an interesting matchup because I actually expected them to do that. Shao Nan versus
Yeah.
Weili, the old Chinese title championship. But I get it. The UFC wants to do it in China. It's a massive fight for the Chinese market. And seems like obviously the Chinese fans are very pro Weili and very against Xiaonan. So,
Ooh.
I mean, they are taking a risk with making this fight because they might end up losing that fight if Whaley loses this. Having said that, I just think the likelihood of, I mean, nothing against Amanda Lemos, but I just don't think she beats Whaley. Whaley's just too good. I mean, I think we were talking about this, uh, you know, uh, behind the scenes, and she actually is. Amanda Lemos is on like a 4 fight win streak as well. So she's beaten the most recent win for her was Marina Rodriguez, who a lot of people expected to challenge for the championship at some point. So to have that win, and I guess look, the fight is validated. Like it's not like you just an undeserving challenger. She definitely is deserving. But yeah, look, she's going against a very strong champion as well.
Yeah, definitely, I agree. I think I can see a clear level between these
Yeah,
two, and that way, Zhang is too strong,
yeah,
and I expect to pick up the win probably in two or three. Um,
yeah.
how do you see it ending?
Yeah, man. Like I'm expecting it to be a finish as well for
Mm,
Whaley. I think she'll get the finish. She's a well-rounded fighter, precious forward. Good fight IQ, tough. So yeah, like I'm expecting her to get the win, but it's an unpredictable sport, man. That's what I said. That's why I said the UFC is taking a risk. It's a fight; anyone can win at any time. All you need is you get caught and that's it, right? So
yep.
yeah, if that were to happen, it'll be very interesting. I mean, I would like to think Whaley would get an immediate title shot, immediate rematch, but it definitely does jeopardize that all Chinese championship showdown.
Yep.
And not to mention, as recently, what's her name? Tatiana Suarez had a really good win against Jessica Andrade, and she's also knocking on the door to the championship as well. So like, there's a lot of challenges around. So it's an exciting time for that division.
Most F, yeah. Um, and yeah, I think the UFC do have a tendency to want to, sometimes slow build the inevitable big matchup that they want to do.
Yeah,
So that feeds
yeah,
into your 100% right about your point about, maybe they just want her to notch up another win and,
yeah.
and just slow build that up until when it's right. Um, but talking about slow come up, slow build, Ian Garry, the next one is an absolute banger. Probably,
And
yeah, I'm more curious just to see his continued rise.
Rice, yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, we didn't get the matchup with Hands of Steel, but we're
Mm,
getting Magni.
yeah.
Um, Now, yeah, this is an interesting one. What do you make of this one?
Well, ultimately, he got the matchup that he wanted. I think after his last win, he called out Magny. He wanted Magny, but then Magny was booked for some reason. They couldn't make that
Yeah.
fight. But then I actually like the Jeff Neal fight because the Jeff Neal fight, the fight style, Jeff Neal brings the action. He's again like if you remember that fight against Shavkat Rakhmonov, man, that was like
Mm.
it's a fight of the year contender. So I mean, that's the type of fighter Jeff Neal is, and he's always exciting to watch. So to have him and Garry, I was very, very excited. I've got a lot of high hopes for Ian Garry. I think again one of those people who understands the fight game, understands the showbiz aspect of it, but also has the goods to
Mm.
back it up. And he's kind of I like sort of how he sets about it in terms of being willing to go and learn from wherever, whenever, whoever, right? To understand and absorb knowledge, to get better. He's always on the grind. If you see him on social media, he's in Brazil, training with Charles Oliveira. He's openly spoken about wanting to come down here to city kickboxing, to this end of the world, and go to city kickboxing and train with the likes of Israel Adesanya, Alexander Volkanovski, and all that. So it kind of shows sort of his mentality. He just wants to be
Yeah.
the best, and he just wants to keep sharpening his tools. So I'm very excited for that, man. I'm excited to see him continue to climb. A tough challenge. We've seen Neil Magny sort of stop a few prospects. So if he can get a win over Neil Magny, it definitely catapults him to that top 10 of that division.
Yeah, still a very solid opponent, and yeah, he's going to
Yeah,
continue his ascendancy momentum, and
yeah,
especially it's how he's doing it.
yeah,
We know you can have boring wins, man,
yeah.
decisions, but if you win
Man,
and you become a crowd favorite, I think that boosts your stock. Remember when we had Holland and
cool.
Hamzat rise up when they
Yeah,
had their rise, it was how they were finishing people. wasn't
yeah,
wasn't the fact that they were just winning.
yeah, absolutely, man. And I think that last win against D Rod was one of the best wins for Ian Garry and in his career because not only
Yeah.
just the fight itself and how clean it was for him, sort of reminded me very much of the sort of the early stages of Conor McGregor in terms of if you watch the lead up to the fight, he explains how he's going to knock him out, and he did the same thing. So to be able to do those kind of things, and that kind of is very reminiscent of the notorious Conor McGregor during his rise. So man, yeah, look, I expect nothing but good things for him. That's a division that's got a lot of prospects, man. You got, Ian Gary's there. You got
Yeah.
Jack Della Maddalena in the mix, right? So there's so many good prospects there. Eventually, and hey, let's be honest, let's not hide from the fact that we eventually going to see a showdown between Ian Gary and Jack Della Maddalena as well.
Oh, sign me up. I cannot
Yeah,
wait for that. That'll be amazing.
absolutely.
For this one, I see Gary picking it up. Yeah,
Yeah,
probably finish. I'm going to say he finishes him. What do you say?
yeah, man. I'm expecting Gary to win as well. Like he seems, even when the announcement he was announced about Neil Magny, sorry, Jeff Neal, withdrawing from the fight, you could see the visible frustration, and then immediately turns to like, I just need someone. I just want to fight. So it kind of shows his mentality. I feel like he's ready. He wants to make a statement, and I think yeah, he'll get a finish. I'm going with Ian Gary.
Yep. Yep. No, exciting. Yeah, this card's good. The next one I'm looking forward to as well. We got Chito Vera back,
Yeah,
Pedro Munez. huge crowd favorite, Chito
Yeah.
Vera. He's kind of been the forgotten guy. He's had some pretty recent success, but it just feels like he talks about it a lot. He's not getting that opportunity. How do you
Yeah.
see that?
Yeah, man. Like whenever Cheetah Vera fights, it's again like really exciting. He brings excitement box office. Um, he was on a really good run. Beating Dominic Cruz with that head kick knockout. He was on a high. Then fought Corey Sandhagen, which we know is no easy order, man. Corey Sandhagen is probably one of the most purest martial artists out there. Even with a damaged tricep, man, he finds a way to win.
Mm.
That's the kind of fighter he is, and that's the level of Corey Sandhagen's skill level is, I know we're going off topic here,
Ooh.
but it's just out of this world. So he went up against him and obviously came short. As a matter of fact, it was a very dominant win for Corey Sandhagen, which meant obviously Cheeto's chances got a bit of a hit. And in this cruel game, you're only remembered as far as your last fight goes, unfortunately. So yeah, like he's now trying to get another shot at redemption. Originally, the fight, let's not forget, this was originally meant to be Chito Vera versus Henry Cejudo,
Mm.
right? And Henry Cejudo obviously had to get some surgery done, so unfortunately had to withdraw from the fight, which then eventuated in the Chito Vera Pedro Munoz. A little bit of a step down from the original announcement of the fight. This was the original co-main, I believe. Um, Nonetheless, it's still a good fight. Pedro Munoz again is another fighter who does like to get into that dogfight, and you just keeps trading shots. We saw that with the Cody Garbrandt fight. So yeah, man, look, let's see how this pans out. But I'm just gonna go with Cheetah Ware on this one.
Yeah, I agree. We've agreed quite a few times on this one.
Yeah,
Uh,
only once
yeah,
we've gone separate ways in the main event, and then the other ones we've agreed.
yeah, yeah. We might be all
Um,
wrong.
Yeah, I know, right? Could you imagine? And well, at least with the main event, one of us is going to be right. So,
Yep.
um, let's just put this in there though. Like, if Cheetah Vera is able to make a statement making, so if he's able to get a statement making win, like a wild knockout, that puts him right back in, man. Right? I
Yeah.
know
It
Sandhagen's
should.
next. You could argue Sandhagen's next, right? Let's look at the scenario of the bantamweight division. if if Sean O'Malley wins, things become straightforward, right? Like obviously he retains the belt. I don't know if Aljamain would want a rematch or if he'd take a rematch, given how much he's focusing on going to the other division, featherweight, which is no easy task anyway. But not having said that, I did hear him say, "Look, I want to like be champ. So in order to do that, you need to have a belt down at bantamweight as well. So maybe they will do the rematch. But let's say it goes the other way and
Yeah.
Aljamain, wins, retains the belt, and then moves up, right? And now you got to look at, and he's made it clear he doesn't want to come back, right? He just wants to, I think, hold on to the belt till he gets the other one, and then you can claim himself double champ. But let's just say, yeah, obviously Aljamain wins, and the division championship is vacant. Who fights for it? I think Corey Sandhagen will be on one side of the championship, but the other one is still up for grabs. There's no clear contender to
Mm.
to stake a claim. So a cheater could have a really crazy knockout, and he's right back in there.
Yeah. Yeah. I wouldn't put that past it, and definitely he's the guy to do it.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah.
sorry, I retract my statement. This is very ignorant of me. How can we forget Marab, man? Like after what he did to Peter Yan,
Mm.
Marab's definitely solidified himself as the next contender, and then Corey Sandhagen. But again, if Cheeto were to have a viral knockout, he might. It's a bit hard to say he can leapfrog Sandhagen when he has a loss against him. But again, we know that the UFC didn't necessarily like that recent win of Sandhagen. So yeah, you never know how this game plays out. But I would like to think Marab's established himself as one of the contenders.
Yeah. He's another forgotten kind of guy as well, waiting for his chance. But yeah,
Yeah,
that just speaks to how stacked it is.
ooh, that's a stack
Yeah. And
division.
then moving on to the prelims. Feature prelim is Chris Weidman, a guy where a lot of people root for, given the road to recovery, the comeback
Yeah,
he's had to face. He's a
yeah,
veteran. Um,
yeah,
Brad Tavares. Yeah, how do you see this feature prelim?
Man, first of all, like great to have Weidman back. Great to see that he's coming back from that injury because it was a
Mm.
nasty, gruesome injury. Anytime you see that shin snap, and we've seen
Oh,
that now a couple of times or three times, um, as far as I'm like, I'm seeing it live in terms of Anderson Silva, Weidman, and then McGregor. But look, to be able to come back from that is it's always great to see that. So we wish him well. He's coming back against Brad Tavares, who's a staple of that middleweight division.
yeah,
Obviously, has up and down performances, but he's a solid contender. Coming back from such a big layoff, coming off of such a big injury, it is a tall task for Chris Weidman. I mean, if you ask me to predict it, I would lean towards Tavares. But again, nonetheless, very excited to see one of the veterans of the sport making a return.
yeah, me too, and I agree. Yeah, I think Brad would have to say you'd have to give him the edge given what Chris has gone through, but
Yep,
yeah, wouldn't be would be a huge comeback story, which we love if he
yep,
does end up pulling it out.
yep,
We also have early prelim Gerard Mearshart. What
yep.
else do you see from this card?
Man, I like Gregory Rodriguez a lot. Robocop,
Mm.
another rising contender in that middleweight division. So I'm excited to see him return, and maybe get another win in there. So yeah, it's a
Mm.
good card. Oh, let's not forget we lost. I don't know. There's no clear indication if the fight's entirely been scrapped or they're looking for a replacement for Batista. But we had Cody Garbrandt versus Maria Batista scrapped due to an undisclosed injury for Cody Garbrandt. So yeah, there's been a fair share of injuries impacting this card.
Yeah,
So yeah, man, I was excited to see Cody Garbrandt come back as well, and see him fight. He's again win or lose, very exciting to watch.
yeah, most definitely. And you know what this signalizes, DJ, in terms of 292. This is the last pay-per-view before Sydney.
Yep,
Um,
absolutely. Yep.
yep. So
And
let's.
hey, they announced the main event, so now we have. I think we spoke about it in our last episode, but yeah, we have a
Mm.
solid main event now, right? We have Adesanya and Strickland, and man, I'm looking forward to that press conference. To be honest, forget about everything else. Just sign me up for that press conference.
Indeed, as a lot of people are. Yep. This is
Yeah,
all about entertainment.
yeah,
Those two know how to entertain. Um, you
absolutely.
know, you know how much we like to big up Aussie cards, but if I'm being real, completely honest, DJ,
Yeah,
I'm a bit underwhelmed with the rest of
yeah,
it in terms of like yeah, I always like seeing Bam Bam, but
yeah.
in terms of a huge pay-per-view, the return to Sydney for the first time in 6 years,
Yeah.
they've got to have a better co-main, I think, than that.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Like, I mean, I'm very thankful that the main event got made because obviously Israel Adesanya's star power just catapults it a lot higher. Having said that, though, like in terms of like if you look at what Salt Lake City got, if you look at the UFC International Fight Night, okay, fine. If we're going to argue that's the fight night or sorry, the International Fight Week or the International Fight Week card, let's look at some of the other cards that have been said. The Miami card was stacked, man. Like even
Yeah,
the UK card, the UK pay per view in March was stacked, where Leon Edwards uh, defended his title against Usman. Man, look at the Abu Dhabi card. Like it's just, I mean, look, I'm inclined to go to Abu Dhabi to watch that fight because that seems a lot more. It's stacked. So yeah, and they haven't even started announcing the entire Madison Square Garden card. So yeah, I would have loved to see a little bit more fights, like at least a couple more fights, maybe fights with some international flavor. We could have got to see some of that. So but unfortunately, that's not the case.
yep.
Look, not to say there is some great Australian talent in there. It is a good card, right? For all the fighters who are fighting, there's some really, really talented fighters. Pretty exciting to watch. But yeah, I'd love to see a little bit more fights in there. Like that's all.
Yeah, it's a great, still a main event and a top heavy, basically
Yeah,
like we saw with Perth.
yeah,
Excellent main event. But it just
yeah,
speaks to I think there is a serious issue in terms of a challenge getting
yeah,
marquee guys all the way down under.
yeah.
Whether
Yeah,
whether it's you
especially.
want to talk about the taxes they have to pay,
Yeah,
the
I was going to say
travel,
that. Yeah.
all of that. And the
Yeah.
most disappointing thing we've talked about a lot is they can't even get some of the most marquee, the timing, and get the most marquee Aussie guys here. No, like Jack Della
Yeah.
Maddalena doesn't even have
It's
anything
absolute
on here.
frustrating. It's frustrating, like to have such a big talent like that, and he's calling out, and they still can't finalize an opponent. I'm still hopeful they might find something. Yeah, and you're right, Sid. You're spot on because it's all great. I mean, it was a privilege to see one of our own, headline the International Fight Week card. But I don't know, like maybe they should have managed those talents, more carefully so they were available. Like it's unrealistic to expect them to turn around in 2 months and fight again. You know what I mean? Especially Whitaker. If Whitaker was in this card as well, like as a co-main, that would have been that would have been a different level. But unfortunately, wasn't the case. Um, I think either way, we wouldn't have got Alexander Volkanovski because he is, expecting the arrival of his third child. So we obviously wish him well with that. But yeah, so the UFC I think missed their mark a little bit in terms of using Robert Whitaker there.
Yeah,
And also to touch on the Perth card, like I agree, it's very similar to the Perth card, but at least the Perth card, the core main, that's what I'm talking about. Like a fight of that caliber. We had Rodriguez and Emmett
Emmett.
fight for the interim titles. That's the sort of fight that, like, that a fight of that caliber would then make this like, okay, well, it's a really good pay.
Yeah, yeah, agree,
I'm
100%.
still
Yeah,
getting it. I'm still watching
let's
it, but
see.
yeah,
Yeah, 100%. Look forward to it. Let's hope Jack can still get on it. Um,
yeah.
but yeah, now we'll touch on the big heavyweight fight. AJ got the big knockout that he hasn't had in a long time. Helenius has suffered quite a few viral knockout, being on the wrong end. Um, did you catch it? What do you think?
Yeah, man, I did. I did actually. I was looking forward to the fight originally between Joshua and Dillian White the second time around because Dillian
Mm,
White is a formidable opponent, and I was keen to see. I know Joshua got a decision win over Franklin. I know the
yeah,
general mass wasn't that um, convinced in terms of, like, saying he solidified his return, his comeback from a loss. But I think this one definitely does. But I originally expected, I originally wanted to see the fight between him and White just to see, okay, well, if you can get a win over Dillian White, you're back. That's a real contender. There's a top contender that you've just, beaten. Unfortunately, it
yeah.
wasn't the case. There was some adverse elements in, or whatever they claimed to be. Either way, he failed a drug test, so he wasn't able to compete. We're thankful for Helenius for jumping in, and he saved the card, obviously, or saved the fight. Um, yeah, it was a short notice fight. Um, I mean, look, I don't know too much about about Helenius and sort of his his, his resume as such. I know he fought Deontay Wilder last, and obviously it wasn't a very promising performance last time around. It was a first round knockout. Um, but yeah, I mean, look, uh, Joshua did get the knockout, so which was good to see. It was a clean knockout. It came in the seventh round, but again, we got to be honest here, and we spoke about this during that whole Jack Della Maddalena taking on that short notice thing. Is that when you take a short notice fight, it is hard for both opponents, not just one, not just the one who's stepping in. Usually, the one who's stepping
Yeah.
in the last minute gets all the attention and the spotlight. However, you know, we got to acknowledge that it is equally difficult for the other person because they've prepared for a particular type of boxer, and they
Mm,
obviously are now fighting a different type of boxer. So, yeah, look, I think there's still some questions left based on the fact that it was a short notice opponent. It wasn't the original opponent that AJ was meant to fight, but nonetheless, it's now a win, a knockout win, boosts his confidence, and I believe they're calling out Andy Ruiz. Deontay Wilder next. They wanted to make that fight. That's a banger fight, man.
yeah, there's no excuses now. They should. I think
Yeah,
like
let's
you're
go.
writing them finally got the knockout you need. There's momentum now. Maybe yeah they can come to an agreement. But yeah, I'm always skeptical with boxing negotiations.
Yeah,
The A side, B side, all of this uh, negotiations. I mean, how many
yeah.
times did Fury flirt with going to be
We'll
matched up with
see.
everybody? And
Man,
then yeah, and
Usyk,
then
don't remind me that. It just breaks my heart every time.
yeah, exactly. But yeah, we look forward to that more. We'll be breaking
Yeah,
down a lot more in the boxing scene. But for
yeah.
this one, the preview of UFC 292, that's a wrap, and I will see you soon.